Hi everyone, I do this every year, but I wanted to do a 24-hour readathon where I just read romance books for the month of February. I think I'll do the timer method again, but basically the premise is I try to read for 24 hours. Every time I read, I let the timer go down, and I really like it because you can kind of spread it out over a couple of days, but it still pushes me to read because I know there's a timer going off, so I'm just like wanting to read a bit. So yeah, I thought I would start that off today. What I'm reading at the moment is The Crown of Gilded Bones, and this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this has been a journey. This is the third book in the From Blood and Ash series. It's a forbidden romance, romantasy book. Lots of different creatures in this world, lots of politics. This book has been interesting so far. Like, I really liked the start of it. I really liked kind of the first 100 pages. I thought it was really action-packed. Then I thought kind of the middle section was really bad filler, to be honest. Like, this is book 3 in I think a 7-book series, and it's very info dumpy, very filler. It is like a romance book as well, so there's like sex scenes and stuff, but they are kind of randomly put in there sometimes. But actually I've got to like the 400-page mark and I'm actually starting to really like it again. I think because the author is focusing on the plot a little bit more. And I think the plot of this is strong. I just think the world building isn't quite there. Regardless, I definitely am excited to keep going with this book. So I'm on page 440-ish. I'm on chapter 34. I think there's 50 chapters in this book, so it's a chunker. I am nearly done, so I'll see if I can get maybe most of this read today. We'll see. That's definitely number 1 on the TBR because I'm in the middle of it, and it is a romance book. Dying to see what happens at the end of this book, so I'm looking forward to it. The really good thing I will say about this book, these are independently published. The writing isn't the best. I suppose it just lacks that editing finesse of a traditionally published book, I suppose. But I will say all these books always leave off in a cliffhanger, and the way she always leaves off a chapter always makes you want to read the next chapter. There's always like something really interesting that you want to keep going and reading. So I am excited for the last 200 pages or so of this, but yeah, we'll see how much of this I get done today. But I have lots of reading time today, so hopefully I'll get through a good chunk of the 24 hours anyway. So yeah, I have my coffee, I'm cozy here on the couch, so I'm definitely just gonna read for a good bit today. Wanted to do a little bit of a check-in. Lighting's quite moody. The sun is like setting, so as you guys saw, I finished off The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I always struggle to say her name, and I think I'm on the 17-hour. Let me just check. I've got 17 hours to go with the 24-hour timer. So yeah, the last section of this book I'm so pleasantly surprised by, because I'm not gonna lie, going into this, I was like contemplating, would I keep going with the series? Because book 1 was a 3-star for me. That's From Blood and Ash. Book 2 was 2 stars, unfortunately. So it was Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I think it's book 2. The first book, I really enjoyed the plotting, but hated the writing. And then the second book, I noticed an improvement in the writing, but then the plotting I found was quite boring. This book was so fillery. That is the only thing. Like, it's 600 pages. It could have been half. She is releasing 7 books for this series, and the last book and the start of this book felt so fillery, which is kind of unfortunate. It is kind of like writing for the sake of adding to the word count. However, I really liked the first 100 pages, and then I think like the next 300 I was a bit like, oh. And then the last 200 I loved. I actually really liked it. So I think this book was, I would say, a 1 or 2 star, I would guess, as a rating for the first half of the book. But then the latter half was a 4, definitely. I really enjoyed it. The plot really got going, and I thought I really like where it's going. So I think I'm going to settle with a 3, because I think that's a good average rating, I suppose. It's a decent book, but has lots of flaws. I really enjoyed reading this. Took a while to get to the enjoyment. So this is a romantasy series. You have Poppy, who's the main character. She is this chosen maiden, and she's supposed to ascend to the gods to help this kingdom, and because of this the king and queen and Dutch and Duchess who kind of mind her keep her like hidden away from society, so she doesn't have any like friendships or relationships. She has like one companion, and then she also just knows her guards. She does actually end up like breaking the rules and sneaking out a lot. Actually, I think the first chapter of For Blood and Ash is her sneaking out, which I quite liked. It really jumped you into the action. It's kind of a forbidden romance with Poppy and one of her guards. And I found the plotting of this one really good as well. The first 100 pages of this was very entertaining. You do kind of have the plot of the villain explaining their reasonings to the hero character. You're like, a villain would never do that. It happens kind of twice in this book. The second time it kind of suits the plotting, but the first time I was like, okay, the villain wouldn't do that. It's obviously to convey information to the reader, and that is the main issue I have with the majority of this book. Actually, the first half of this book is very info dumpy, very, very info dumpy. It's very much characters just explaining to the main character. Like, a character quirk that she has is that she asks a lot of questions, and I'm like, I wonder why. Armitage wants you to get to know the information. There's a lot of telling, not showing, in terms of the world building. It is kind of a high fantasy setting, so there's a lot of different characters or different creatures in this world, a lot of politics, a lot of different lands and stuff like that, but it is kind of explained through telling information, which is a bit annoying just when it's done a bit too much. I would rather see that one nation is better than the other than being constantly told. The writing style can be quite jarring in places, so I can only give this book a 3-star. I can't give it any more than that. It is a big improvement from book 2. I actually really liked the plotting at the end. I loved Poppy's character development. I thought it was very entertaining. I don't want to like harp on the writing style too much because these are independently published. There probably would have been more finesse if these were traditionally published, so I don't want to harp on that too much. It is an adult romantasy. The sex scenes in it, or smutty scenes if you want to say it that way, are quite graphic, so just bear that in mind. I don't mind that if it's part of the plot and the romance story in a kind of logical way. However, I kind of felt like the author was like, okay, this is a romance book, I need to have a sex scene every certain amount of pages or chapters, and I could barely see it coming. I can nearly be like, okay, oh yeah, they're resting for the night well on this journey, okay, I know what's going, you know. It got very predictable, and it wasn't very, I don't know, it just wasn't very romantic for a romantic story when you kind of just know that the author's just putting them in there for the sake of it being a romance book. So that is a pity. I obviously don't mind these types of scenes, but I prefer when they're more organic, I suppose, or they're more like fit into the plot a little bit more rather than like needing to have so many in a certain page length. Is it like very silly in places? Yeah. Like, I think there's some like plot holes as well. Like, one of the main secondary characters, would I say, tells Poppy that public displays of affection are very kind of common, but then you have a few chapters later the same character telling Poppy to get a room when she's showing affection. So I don't know, there's a few things like that. Yeah, overall quite fun. I definitely will continue because this was the book that was going to make me decide if I was going to continue with the series, and I definitely will. I think for me as well, I don't love all the characters in this story. I think that's what's probably taking me out a little bit. I think what's carrying me is the plot, and I do quite like the plotting of it, even when it is a bit too info dumpy and definitely middle book syndrome happening here. So yeah, it was just kind of very obvious what the author was trying to do, which is kind of a pity. But I do think if these were just edited down and finessed a little bit, and like if they were just even 200 pages shorter and you just kept the good bits, this would be such an excellent series. But I'm having fun. I will keep going. They're not anything groundbreaking. I think if you like Powerless, or maybe you've like Akatar, anything like that, I think you probably will like this. It's like a more adult Powerless, I would say. But yeah, it's difficult to talk about book 3 because I obviously don't want to spoil anything. So much changes from book 1 to book 3, like so much. So props to the author for that. So I thought I would do another romance book, but I didn't want to do another romantasy. So I thought I would actually go for Happy Place by Emily Henry. I know this was quite a summary book and I'm reading it in February, but I don't really mind. I'm kind of just in the mood for it. I like Emily Henry. I don't love her. Like, I read Funny Story and I read People We Meet on Vacation, and I did really like those books, but I haven't found a book that I love from her yet, and I've heard that this is probably her best one. I think she does very substantial rom-coms with a good kind of underlying story underneath a romance. I think it's about a couple who were engaged. They're about to go on a vacation with a group of their friends, and their engagement has actually been broken off, but they didn't tell anyone yet, and I think they don't want to ruin the holiday, so I think they carry on with going to the holiday pretending they're still together where actually they've broken up. So I think it'll be a good maybe second chance romance, I would say. Maybe a good book about friendship. I heard it's quite melancholic but also very real, so I'm excited to start it. So I'm kind of in the mood for a contemporary romance. I'm also trying to do, I don't know if anybody else is, but Goodreads have introduced this every 4 months they release like 6 challenges. I think they're based on different Goodreads articles, and Happy Place is one of them. Like, it's one of the qualifying books for, I think, the first challenge. I don't know, is it Busy Books or something like that? I'll put it on the screen. I would really like to do that challenge. I think there's that one. I've completed one already by reading Hellbent. I think there's like a historical fiction. There's one for Black authors or Black stories for Black History Month. There's also a romance one, and then one of them hasn't been released yet because it's coming out in March. So I'm like trying to do that as well, but I thought I would read Happy Place. It's a romance, so it's good for this video, but also it'll fill the prompt for that first challenge. So yeah, I'm gonna go for this one. I'm going out for dinner now though, so I'm gonna start it either tonight or tomorrow, we'll see. But yeah, looking forward to starting this. Hi, so I thought I would do a little bit of a check-in. I love that you can see the fire behind me. It is very cold today. So I am 65 pages into Happy Place, just about to hit the 15-hour mark, or 15 hours left. I feel like I'm in Happy Place enough in order to give a little bit of an overview. So I would give like my first thoughts. So far it really has that Emily Henry feel to it. This story is about this friendship group. So you have Harriet, Sabrina and Cleo, and they're all college friends, and they've been like really close best friends since college, and I think they're in their 30s now. I think it's roughly 10 years later, either late 20s, early 30s. Harriet is the main character, Sabrina is her friend. Sabrina is from a very, very wealthy family, and they have this like really magnificent like holiday home, and every summer the girls go with their partners and have a holiday, have a little friendship group holiday. And this is Harriet's like happy place. So she's a surgeon, and she's just been kind of like counting down the days for this holiday. She can't wait to see her friends. They all quite live far away from each other. However, she's recently had her engagement breakdown. She ends up going on this year's holiday, and her ex-fiance is there. I won't say the reasons, I suppose, because that's a bit spoilery. They basically have to pretend that they're still a couple in front of their other friends because they don't want to like bring anyone down or bring down the holiday, because it is, I think the house is being sold, so it's kind of like the last hurrah, it's their last holiday in this place. So yeah, it's a lot of setup at the moment, but I'm really liking it. I can already tell this is probably going to be a more emotional one. Already you've got Harriet, she's very stressed, she's very sad over this breakup, she's very happy to be with her friends. There is this kind of like melancholic, oh like this is going to be the last holiday, I have to pretend everything's fine when I'm not, I'm supposed to be having a really fun time and I can't. So yeah, it's already quite emotional and kind of emotionally heavy, so I think that's going to be really good. Some of the logistical setup I feel is a little bit forced though. Like I feel like Emily Henry really wanted this trope of these exes pretending that they're still a couple. I thought the reasoning for Harriet and Wynne to not tell their friends that they're not together anymore a little bit weak. It was kind of like, oh, everyone's really busy, but I'm like, something serious like that, I don't know, if that happened to me, the first thing I would do would be call my best friends. So I don't know, I think I'm just like not relating a little bit. So in a way I'm just feeling it's a little bit far-fetched, a little bit forced, just the plotting, but I think the character dynamic will be interesting. There's not a lot of books, I feel like, or romance books where the couple were already a couple. Most romance books are two people meet and they get together in a book. So it is interesting to see that Harriet and Wyn already knowing each other, obviously really well. And there's kind of a few timelines happening here. It's like when they first meet, it's the current day. I really like the chapter headings. It's either happy place, so Harriet's in her happy place, or real life. The writing is great. It's very on par, the same as kind of any other Emily Henry book. It is well written, but yeah, maybe just the setup of the situation that they're in I'm finding a little bit unbelievable. But yeah, so far so good. I'm really liking it. So I don't remember Funny Story having chapters as short as this. I listened to that on audiobook though, I suppose, but it's very kind of quick paced because the chapters are quite short, so I feel like I probably won't take too long to get through this, which is also kind of good. It's currently 4:15 right now. I have the whole evening free. I just literally need to pause to have dinner at some point, so I'm hoping to get through a good bit of this book and hopefully get my hours down as well a little bit, but we shall see. Hi again, I thought I would do a little update. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Starting this I was like, oh, I quite like it, but I think now that I think about it, I think I prefer Funny Story a little bit more. Overall, a really good immersive book. I found it like really hard to put it down. I was like really engulfed in the story, really kept turning the pages. It had a lot of visceral reactions, but I also felt annoyed by it too, which is kind of strange. Obviously, the premise of this is you have Harriet and Wyn, and they are ex-fiancés, but their friends don't know yet. They have this yearly holiday. They haven't told their friends. The original plan was for Harriet to go and Wyn not to go. The couple who organised this really wanted Wyn and Harriet there at the same time. So it's basically a friend group. So you have Harriet, you have Sabrina and Cleo, and they're friends from college. They're very, very different, but they all really click together and they have this very like sisterhood, best friends. Then they each have their own partners. So Cleo has Kimmy, Harriet has Wyn, and Sabrina has Parth. So it's basically 3 couples, and this holiday every year is Harriet's happy place, so that's where the name of the book comes from. There's a lot of melancholy in this, like even when there's happy times in this, like when you go back in the past and they're having happier times, especially with Harriet and Wyn as a couple, it's a bit sad because you know they're going to break up. So it's it's strange though. I do like the premise of a romance book that has a couple that have been together for years. Obviously they've broken up and they're pretending to still be together, so it is kind of like second chance fake dating, I suppose. It is kind of refreshing to read from a couple who are very much in love already from page 1, you know. I think the issue with Emily Henry, I think I've read 3 of her books now, and I think I don't really know, does she want to be a rom-com author or does she want to be a romance, like contemporary romance, like an adult book author? Because some parts of her books are kind of rom-com-y, like some situations are very kind of a bit far-fetched, like the premise of this book. Like for example, this book, just to have a plot, some very kind of silly, unbelievable things happen. The kind of reasoning that Harriet and Wyn haven't told all their friends or family about their breakup, I thought was pretty weak, and that's because Emily Henry wants to have a plot. So yeah, I feel like maybe the romance itself is very strong. I always find her characters are a little bit character-y. Like I always feel like they've got the thing that they're good at, the thing that they like, they've got their past trauma and things they hate. Like I can see Emily Henry's mind map or pin board she made in order to make this. So I think that's it. I don't find the dialogue when she's trying to be funny very funny. I like Emily Henry books, but I don't love them. But I'm still very happy I read this. I still quite like it. I really liked Wyn's character. He felt very believable, not so much Harriet. As someone who is a people pleaser myself, I just can't believe her lack of communication skills for a woman who's 30 years old. It just didn't feel very real to me. I don't have to relate to the main character to like a book, but I just felt like, why is this happening? So I think this will be a hit or miss book for a lot of people because it is one big miscommunication trope. Like that's all. It's like people not sharing their feelings. There is a part in this where Cleo goes, we haven't like talked yet. And it's like 3 days into their week. And I'm like, that's so unrealistic. If you haven't seen your best friends, like your sisters, and you haven't talked about your feelings yet. I'm like, what girl group are you in? Things like that annoyed me about the book, but then I also like thoroughly enjoyed it and couldn't put it down. So it is very conflicting for me. I read it very quickly. I probably should have filmed my reaction reading some of the chapters, because I was a bit like, I'd say I looked distraught reading some of these. It's quite a sad book, but there was some things I really liked about it, like the joy and happiness of being with your group of friends, deciding what is good for your life and what isn't, making your own choices, the importance of friendship and communicating. Just if you don't like miscommunication, I don't think you'll like this. So that's the only thing about it. So enjoyable. I'm glad I read it. I do think funny story is a little bit more up my alley. I feel like I complained about this more than I talked about how I liked it, but it was very engaging. But yeah, I think I'm just a little bit confused. I'm like, is this a rom-com? No, this is too sad to be a rom-com. So why does it have some like rom-com elements? You know, I would rather if maybe Emily Henry decided she's a rom-com author, or decided she's a slice of life adult romance author, because I think the straddling between the two doesn't quite work for me. Her new book, I think, what is it called? Great Big Beautiful Life. That does sound funny, because it's about two competing authors who are vying to write the biography of this like crazy famous woman, and that woman is like playing with both of them. So I hope maybe that leans on the funny a little bit. I hope that's coming out in April. But I definitely want to read Emily Henry's backlist. Will read her future releases, but yeah, maybe just this isn't quite my favorite. I think I liked this more than People We Meet on Vacation, but I think Funny Story I liked a little bit more than this. But still, a 4 stars, definitely rounding it up to the 4. So I'm in the same outfit, but it's a different day. I'm actually super close to finishing the timer. I did a bit more reading this morning, and I'm just at the 2.5 hour mark. So I don't have much to go. Also, I accidentally like deleted my timer like halfway through. I think at the 12 hour mark. So I had to set a new timer. So that's why the circle looks different. I just realized as well I haven't really talked about One Dark Window yet. I'm actually at the halfway point. I'm at page like 200. So I think I'm obviously going to keep reading for the 2.5 hours. I don't think I'll finish the book in 2.5 hours. I'm loving this. Really, really loving it. It's brand new to me, but it feels nostalgic. Like there's something kind of comforting about it. I'm not quite sure why, but I think because it's like a good YA or new adult fantasy, it's set in like this fantasy kingdom, but it is very like Bridgerton, Pride and Prejudice-esque with the way life is set up in this story. Like women have diaries, and there's like these formal events, there's like courtship, you have this kingdom, and all kind of the highborn families go celebrate the equinox with the king, things like that. It's kind of fantasy, but it's also very like austere and Bridgerton like. I picked this up because I'm trying to do the Goodreads challenge, and this one is the 5th challenge. This was the shortest book I own that qualified for that challenge, so that's why I picked it up. And that is a romance challenge, but I do think in this book the romance and the plot are like of equal importance. Like they're very much side by side, which I really, really like, and I think it's very well done. The magic system in this is incredible. I knew that going in. Everyone said the magic system is really good, but I didn't realize how good it is. You basically have this kingdom that had a king like 500 years previously. He made a bargain with the spirit of this forest, and now there's these cards which kind of resemble like playing cards, and if you tap them you can access their magic, and if you tap them again the magic will stop. And they have various forms of rarity, I suppose. In this kingdom you have this mist that's slowly kind of engulfing the kingdom. The only way to get rid of this mist is if all the cards are collected. So the king is trying to gather all these cards, and they're very valuable. Different families have different cards. Some have been stolen, some are hidden, you know. It's very interesting. You have Elspeth, who's the main character. There's this fever that happens in this kingdom that if you have it, you're hunted down and you're killed. But if you survive it, you actually have some magical abilities. So Elspeth got the fever when she was a child. However, her aunt like hid her away when the physicians came looking for her, and she's been kind of pretending she hasn't been infected for 11 years. She's 20 years old now. Her magic is actually if she touches a Providence card, she'll absorb some of the magic. So she's actually touched the Nightmare card, and now she has this this guy in her head talking to her, and he actually gives her kind of super strength if she needs it. So it's interesting because she's the main character, but she's always with him. Like, he's always in her head, and he affects her mood, he affects her actions. They kind of work together, they kind of don't. So it's very interesting. She meets highwaymen then that jump her in the forest, and they try to get information out of her. I better not say anything about the romance because it's kind of spoilery. It's kind of nearly fake dating in a way. They have to do a fake courtship, but she has this very interesting pretend courtship that she has to go through. She kind of gets roped up with this guy and his group. But yeah, I love the writing style. It's very good. It's very kind of witty in ways as well. Sometimes the dialogue's quite funny. The world building's very good. Like, I really liked how instead of information dumping, you'd have an example like Elspeth's kind of sitting with her aunt and her mum when she was a child, and then telling her about the cards and how the cards came to be. Like, it's a bedtime story. I think that's such a good way to build the world. Like, it's kind of shown to you through proper scenes rather than information dumping. I think the author easily could have info dumped, and she didn't, so I'm really glad. I think my only gripe so far is sometimes I feel like the dialogue can be really out of the blue or unrealistic sometimes, and I'm finding the courtship situation, some things that happened were a little bit out of the blue too. So for example, this isn't really a spoiler, but he wipes away a tear, but they're definitely not close enough for him to do that. I think that would be super invasive for the stage that they're at. So yeah, there's some things that are kind of like take me out a little bit, but so far I'm really liking this. I actually think I'm getting like 5-star feelings, which is really nice, but we'll see how it goes. This is actually book 1 of a duology as well, so I can imagine this is going to end on a big cliffhanger and I'm going to need book 2 immediately. But yeah, I love how Elspeth kind of gets swept up in the plot. I'm trying to say it without spoilers, but it's very like feasible, well done. I really like Elspeth as a character as well. She's kind of very sharp. You don't know if it's kind of her or it's the nightmare that's causing that sharpness a little bit, but I like her as a female main character, and I like the male main character in it as well, so it is nice in terms of like a romance story. I love that the romance and the plot are like equal importance. It's very good. Yeah, and I've got this beautiful edition from Fairy Loot. I think this came out a few years ago, so yeah, very happy to be reading this. Hi everyone, so I thought I would wrap up this vlog here. As you saw last night, I finished the 24 hours. So I got to page, I think it was like 260 or something, but then I continued on to finish the chapter. So I'm on page 270 now. I was contemplating like finishing this book before I wrapped the vlog up, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the timer method. So altogether, I read 270 pages of this one, and there is, I think it's 390, so I've got 120 to go. I read the entirety of Happy Place by Emily Henry, and then I read the last 250 pages, I think, of The Crown of Gilded Bones. So yeah, I'm really happy with all that. I like that they were all very different types of romances. So the From Blood and Ash series is very adult romantasy, and then Happy Place is like an adult contemporary, and then One Dark Window is very new adult, I suppose. It was kind of fun reading different types of romance for this video. So yeah, I really enjoyed myself. I love doing the timer method because it is kind of fun to see how much you can get done, and it does encourage me to read a lot during my free time. I really like where One Dark Window is going. I have definitely 5-star feelings with it, which is really nice, even though there is a few things I'm like that I think aren't perfect. Like, I do think the pacing of the romance, even though I like the romance and I like how it's being done, I feel like the pacing is a little off. The build up to it wasn't quite correct or something, or I've just read better versions of that, even though I really like them as a couple and like the two characters. I love the gothic setting of this. I love how dark and eerie it is, but it's still very like comforting and wholesome as well. It's like nostalgia for me or something. It's like any of those classic good YA fantasies. It just reminds me of those, or new adult I should say. So it has all the elements of books that I love, and I love the world building, I love the magic system in this, I love how the romance and the plot are just as important as each other. I think the writing's really good. I love Elm. I think he's my favourite. I think he's written really well. He's really funny. The dialogue in this can be really funny as well. So yeah, having a fun time. I'll definitely, obviously I'm going to finish this book off and I'll mention it in another vlog or my next wrap up or something like that. So I'll have my final thoughts there. but really enjoying it. Really excited for the next 100 or so pages and finishing it off, but I do want to savour it, like I don't want to rush it. Yeah, that was my timer method 24-hour readathon romance edition, and also trying to do the Goodreads challenges at the same time. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, I do anything book related on this channel, so reading challenges like this one, reading reviews and TBR games, all that sort of stuff. I'll leave all these books that I mentioned in the description and all my socials. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.